Hey, how you doing?
Man.
Yeah, brother, like solid. Right on.
Hey, man, what's your name?
Good morning and welcome to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789, 844-967-2789. Text us at that same number. Hey, good morning to you, Calvin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Earl. How are you?
Hey, man, the sun is shining, man.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a little bit warmer today.
Yeah, only a little bit. But, man, just the sun shining makes all the difference in the world, man, right?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah, it kind of lifts your spirits. And it's going to be out all day. It's not going to get a lot warmer, but, in time it'll come. But just to see that sun is just a great uplifting for us all. Well, it's Thursday, so that means in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. Omar, the pharmacist, in the pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. If you haven't heard by now, every Thursday we're joined by Dr. Omar, the pharmacist of Welltopia Pharmacy in Mequon, Thiensville, and he's on, and there's so many, different aspects of medication and what's going on with the medications you take. And I was reading an article this morning. You like grapefruits, man?
Grapefruit?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No. So I love pink grapefruits, and I eat them like oranges or apples. And there's something about a pink grapefruit that I just am addicted to. I love eating them, without sugar and anything. Just peel them and eat them. But I didn't realize those grapefruits don't interact with meds, and what they do is take away the potency of your medication, and in many instances can kind of lead to death. And so, it's so great to have Omar, the pharmacist, on, because we can talk about those things and anything else you want to talk about relating to the meds that you are taking, and what we can do better to understand the purpose of those meds and the correlation between those things and the pharmacist. So, as always, at 9 o'clock on Thursdays, we're going to be joined by Omar, the pharmacist. There's so many different things I want to talk about this morning, Calvin. But I want to begin that, Donald Trump, I'm sorry, I can't stop talking about Donald Trump. And if it bothers you that we talk about Donald Trump so much, is because of the things he says and the things that he does, that as a society, we should make it clear that one man is not above the law, and we have no law. We have no democracy. We have none of those things if we keep allowing one person, I don't care if his name is Donald Trump, to disobey law. Don't arrest me and tell me that, I didn't follow the law, and so I don't follow the law. So the law comes down on me because, I didn't do something as well. You ran the red light. You ran the stop sign. So, okay, we're going to make sure you pay the price for that because there's a law. And it's not that your name is Earl Ingram, but the fact of the matter is you broke a law. Well, Donald Trump goes way beyond that. And time after time after time after time, and the highest courts in the land seem to be terrified to hold him accountable. So what happened this time? So yesterday, Donald Trump went after the judge in the hush money trial. He was told he had a gag order. Calvin, what does a gag order mean? If a judge issues a gag order to you or me, what is he saying?
He's saying don't talk.
Right. Okay. And so if he's saying don't talk, he's saying that there is a penalty that you are going to have to pay, right?
Yeah.
If you persist in talking about this case. So what did Donald Trump do? So the former president took aim at Judge Juan Merchan's daughter in social media posts. So Trump was told, don't talk about the case. So Trump turns around and talks about the judge's daughter. And there's no reprisal. How much longer is our nation going to allow that? Well, you can't do anything to him. He's running for president of the United States. That's ridiculous on its face. So no person should be above the law. 844-967-2789. This is in this morning's Huffington Post. Former President Donald Trump lashed out Wednesday at the judge overseeing his criminal trial in New York and attacked his daughter as well. Just a day after the judge imposed a gag order barring him from speaking about the case, he went after the judge's daughter. He should be handcuffed, shackled, and locked up. I don't care how you feel about Donald Trump. Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend on yesterday about Donald Trump. He supports Donald Trump, and he said to me, well, I don't care much about his morals. I think his morals are horrible. But his policies, and I'm like, wait a minute, man. If I hear another person say to me, I don't care about Donald Trump's morals, but his policies, what attracts me to any person is their morals. That's first and last. And anything else that's said outside of that is nonsensical. To say that I believe in Donald Trump and I love Donald Trump because, it's not his morals. His morals are horrible. But, I all the other things about him I support. Well, that's a ridiculous statement. Anybody that I'm associated with, what attracts me to them and keeps me connected to them, their moral fiber. I don't want to be around people who don't have that. I'm sorry. My moral fiber is who I am. And I think most of you would agree with that. That's who you are. You're tied into your morals represent who you are. Well, in the case of Donald Trump, I'm not so much worried about his morals. I don't understand, and you probably wouldn't say that about anyone else. Those of you who support Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't say that about anyone else. Well, the guy's he's a bank robber, he's a rapist, and but I don't support his moral fiber, but I know he's a rapist, but there's something about him I like. What is that? So anyway, the gag order does not apply. So here's what Donald Trump basically had to say. Judge Juan Merchan, who is suffering from the acute case of Trump derangement syndrome, has now issued another, this is Donald Trump talking, illegal, un-American, unconstitutional order as he continues to try and take away my rights. Trump wrote in his post, This judge, by issuing a vicious gag order, is wrongfully attempting to deprive me of my First Amendment rights to speak out against the weaponization of law enforcement. What? Where is law enforcement? Why didn't they go to his home and get him out of his bed and lock him up like they would do any of us? And this is the man that you want to be the president of the United States. He goes after the judge's daughter. Can't you see who this man is? I mean, again, well, you know, his morals aren't the best. What kind of statement is that? I'm sorry, I don't understand that. 844-967, 2789. I don't understand that. Please call me and help me understand what you mean when you say, I don't like his morals, but I like the man. I've never heard something that makes so little sense. I'm sorry. That statement is a ridiculous statement on its face. And I keep hearing more and more and more people make that statement and accept that statement. Like, well, okay, this is how it is. You would not say that about anyone else. What makes him more special than anyone else? I mean, I'm asking you, 844-967-2789. The former president also attacked Merchant's daughter, claiming she had used an image of Trump behind bars as a profile picture on X, the social media platform formerly known called Twitter. So let me get this straight. The judge's daughter is allowed to post pictures of her dreams of putting me in jail. The Manhattan DA is also able to say whatever lies about me he wants. And the judge can violate our laws and constitutions at every turn, but I am not allowed to talk about the attack against me, wrote Trump. 844-967-2789. I'm coming right to you. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. Right on. Right on. What they do? They smile in your face. All the time they want to take your place. The backstabbers. Backstabbers. smiling in your face. All the time they want to take your place. The backstabbers.
All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Text us at that same number. How much longer are we going to allow as a country? You know, we talk about justice being blind. You know, Donald Trump goes after the judge in the hush money trial after being hit with a gag order. He turns around, goes on Truth Social, talks about the judge's daughter, totally ignores the gag order, berates the judge, and he's still free. Let's go to Vincent. Hey, good morning to you, Vincent. How you doing, man? You say what?
Doing well. You know, the point is that the Republican Party has lost its moral compass and has sold its soul just to be able to say that they won, you know, the race. But when hasn't character matter, especially for the highest office in this country? When hasn't character mattered? And the fact is that they used to be the so-called respectable party, I used to say, you know, the religious right and everything else. But the fact is they have sold their soul and to this man. And so you can't expect any cogent thought from them, because the fact is that they're blinded by this individual. I don't know, like a cultish kind of mentality. It's just amazing to me how much this man gets away with. The fact is that everybody who has come in contact with Trump is either in jail or broke. Something should tell you about that. Something should say something about that. That every person he appointed in his cabinet has said they're not going to vote for him. His own vice president said that he's not going to vote for him. The generals in the Army, Navy, and Air Force have said, no, this man is not equipped with any moral capability to be president of the United States. And I understand why people don't see this and understand this.
So, Vincent. Go ahead. Finish your point.
And so when you begin to talk to individuals, say they're voting for Trump, and then they say, well, you know, why do you get angry or why do you get upset? Because we can't take our brain there. That over the years, that this is what we ask for our politicians. At least give us a little character. At least have character. Now it's thrown out.
So Vincent, so I understand all of those things, right? What I don't understand is why the law doesn't enforce it. Hey, you got a gag order. I don't care if your name is Donald Trump or, you know, whoever your name is. There's a gag order, and you disavow the gag order. What should be the penalty, Vincent? What should they do? Ignore the gag order?
No, it should be contempt of court.
Yes.
It should be thrown in jail. You know, there should be contempt of court and thrown in jail. But this happens time and time again, state after state after state. They put these things up, these barriers to tell them, say, hey, you can't talk about this trial, and he does it anyway. So no, and that's why he thinks he's above the law.
Well, they let him be above the law. They let him be above the law. Hey, Vincent, thank you very much for the call. Thank you for the words. Let's go to Robert from West Dallas. Good morning to you, Robert. Your thoughts?
Good morning, Earl. Yeah, really, I think part of it is people's identity is caught up in their politics. At some point in time, we change from, you know, looking at things rationally, facts and information, and then making a judgment on it. Whereas so many people, it's almost like a sports team. You know, this is their guy, regardless, you know, facts be damned, or information that's put in front of their face. They can't really logically think about it, because this identity of theirs, whether it's a MAGA Republican or the party or a Trump guy, is just so tied into it. To Vincent's point, you know, I don't understand why they don't hold him accountable. I mean, Nikki Haley says he's not fit for the job. We saw John Eastman lost his law license recently, one of the Trump guys. And really, I think some of these judges, they're afraid to look too political. So they just dropped that judgment from like 400 million down to like 175 or something. And I don't understand why some of these judges do these things, or these prosecutors let them get away with it. At some point, people need to stand up and say, "Hey, this is enough. We're going to hold this guy accountable for once in his life."
You know, again, Robert, I agree with everything that you have said. I just, again, will never accept the fact that the judicial system will not hold him accountable. Hey, there's a gag order. What's the point in putting out a gag order if you're going to allow him to disavow it? Him or anybody else. He's a citizen, right? He's not the president of the United States as we speak. What is he, Robert? He's a citizen like you and me.
This isn't the first time he's gone after a judge, if you remember.
I
I mean,
know.
this man's gone after war veterans and everything else. So, yeah.
Hey, Robert, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Carmela. Good morning to you, Carmela. How are you?
Hi, very well. Yeah, I agree with the previous two callers 100%. But my thing, since he's come into the political scene, Trump, is the word unprecedented. I, every day, several times a week, we just hear Trump. Oh, it's unprecedented. Why is it unprecedented? How could people not see this coming? It boggles my mind. And then, you were talking about the morals, and I've always said, what if this were your boss? What if this were your brother or somebody? You would not take that abuse. Or, let's say it were a boss and you didn't like what they were doing, you would find another job. You wouldn't want to work for somebody like this. And it boggles my mind that people put up it's actual abuse from him. And I think Robert said it's like a cult. Maybe Vincent said it before that. And I don't understand it. It just,
Well,
like you.
Well, so Carmela, listen, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not even talking about the people who support him now. I'm talking about the government that won't enforce the law. The law is clear. They put gag orders in place because they don't want you talking about the issue, the trial. And then there is penalty, as Vincent talked about, you can be held in contempt of court, which means you can be locked up. Why don't they lock him up? The first person that locks him up, he'll shut his mouth. But if they're going to continue not to do the right thing and follow the law, he's going to keep doing this. I wish I had more time, Carmela. Thank you very much for the call. 844-967-2789. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
Smiling faces, sometimes it's smiling in your face. No doubt, dirty lies. say, nothing I can do. I feel so bad, yeah. I feel so blue. I got to make it right for everyone concerned. Even if it's me, if it means it's me, what's getting burned? 'Cause I could never make you unhappy.
All right. Welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. I got something else I wanted to get into, but I want to get to the phone lines for those who want to respond to the subject that I was talking about the first half an hour, and that's the fact that Donald Trump was saddled with an order, a gag order, by the judge, in the Stormy Daniels case, that he should not have anything to say. He totally ignored it, went on his Truth Social, berated the judge's daughter and the judge himself, and now he's still a free man. I don't understand that. I never will. And until we as a nation take that on and challenge our judicial system to not play favorites, I don't know how you can talk about law and order and justice. If there's no justice and if there's no law and order that's meted out to any person who breaks the law, then I don't know how there should be law and order meted out to anyone else who breaks the law. Let's go to Don from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Don. You say what?
Good morning, Earl. Thank you for taking my call. Yeah, that's always been a puzzle to me, too, why the law doesn't bring the hammer down on him. But I'm glad that you keep pointing that out, because maybe some people that hear this might wake up, and realize, hey, there's something. This man's got to be stopped. He's dangerous. I mean, there's so much speculation. I just can't understand it. Maybe they're afraid if they put him in jail, he might hang himself.
Well. So let me say this, Don. Don. I think they're afraid that if they meted out the law the way they should, that so many people love him that they are going to have to deal with those people. And my response to that is, that's ridiculous. Anybody who breaks the law. And so if Donald Trump gets locked up for doing the things that he said and done, which he should be, and people want to break the law behind that, then they should be penalized as well. For a government to be fearful of citizens, any other time, citizens they'll take care of. But it just so happens in this instance, our government seems to be afraid of the response of those who support the MAGA Republicans, who support Donald Trump. And it makes no sense whatsoever to me, Don. Thank you very much for the call. Let me go here. Another thing that I am really frustrated and tired of. So the mayor of Baltimore, Mayor Brandon Scott, very bright young man. I've heard him. I've listened to him. He's ascended to the highest position in the city of Baltimore, not because he's black, but because he's a very bright young man who's been elected to represent the people and to govern the people of Baltimore. Just like in the city of Milwaukee, Mayor Cavalier Johnson, college-educated, University of Wisconsin-Madison, educated guy, young black man, is the mayor of the city of Milwaukee. They didn't get there because of DEI. They didn't get to those positions because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's some things going on in this nation that should be called out, and they're not being called out. And as a guy who's, soon to have lived 7 decades, I see these things. I've seen them before, and they're back. And people aren't willing to talk about them and take them on. So why am I so upset this morning about what happened in Baltimore? Because that young mayor received a bunch of attacks that the only reason he's the mayor is because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the fact that he was blamed, that because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, he's the reason why this bridge collapsed. And so let me read this. All right, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott provided a new meaning for the acronym diversity, equity, and inclusion after conservative critics linked him to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in response to the deadly Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. And so they went on social media and blamed diversity, equity, and inclusion and this mayor for the bridge coming down. And it's not just bad enough, and this was on X. The attack occurred on X. These writings, and so 25 million viewers agreed with the person who said that this young man was responsible for that bridge collapsing. And if he wouldn't have been in that position if it wasn't for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they got 13, million likes and 5,900 shares. Now, I don't know about you, but you and I know that there's something going on in this nation, and it's been going on really ever since Donald Trump became the president of the United States, and it's been accepted. How do we accept that kind of hatred? How do we turn away from that? How do we ignore that? How do we act as if this is not happening? It is happening. It's happening with more frequency than ever before, and people are silent on it as well. Let's go to David from Mequon. Good morning to you, David. You say what?
Good morning, Earl. I think it's absolutely shameful I'm not a big fan of DEI, but to blame DEI for the bridge collapse is absolutely absurd.
Well, they blamed the mayor. They blamed the mayor.
Yeah. And honestly, there's a lot of people who are culpable. First, starting with the ship, because that ship is actually had another accident in 2016, and it was found out it was beautiful weather day. There was no fatalities or injuries, I guess. It was in Belgium. So this is not the first go around with this ship. What should have been done was, and the Army Corps of Engineers and stuff, they should have also, the newer bridges, and I've been reading about this and I was a little surprised that there's no barriers to protect the bridge for something this massive. So the newer bridges, if you look, and they use Tampa as an example, have these barriers, and a shrimp boat actually ran into a bridge, but because it had a barrier, it was okay.
So David,
And so we have to realize that one thing. I mean, it's an easy peanut gallery kind of thing, and unfortunately, to your point, it's easy to get people on board with something that absolutely has nothing to do with what just happened. It's disturbing. I agree with you 100%.
hey David, thank you very much for the call. This has been happening. It continues to happen, and so you know, so you know, for your information, FYI, every black person who's in a position of leadership is not in this country, is not there because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know there are people in this nation who believe that. And so that is that kind of mentality and that kind of foolishness where not only the person who posted that on X, but 25 million others who agree with that person says something about the direction of this nation. And I'm sorry. You know, there aren't a lot of people who are going to talk about it because, you know, it's something again that maybe it's a judgment. It's not a judgment on everybody, but it is a judgment on some Americans. And that judgment needs to be had. If you believe that any person of color who's in position of leadership in this nation, it's because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're kind of a sick individual. And I could kind of live with the fact that there's a person who feels that way. But then when 25 million others are in the amen corner, and probably even more, hey, America, we got an issue. We got a real issue. And I don't know why we won't talk about it. You know, it's outlandish. It's outrageous to blame this mayor, young man, 38 years old, well educated, who had nothing to do whatsoever with what happened to that bridge in Baltimore. And yet, you know, somebody comes out and says this. This is what happens when you have governors who prioritize diversity over the well-being and security of citizens, is what a Utah representative said. Now listen to this. Others, such as Florida congressional candidate Anthony Sabati, declared DEI did this. This is a candidate for a congressional seat out of Florida. This DEI did this in response to the collapse while Utah Representative Phil Lyman, a GOP gubernatorial candidate in the state, took aim at Maryland Port Commissioner Kamala A. Barber, the first black woman to hold the title. This is what happens when you have governors who prioritize diversity over the well-being and security of citizens, wrote Lyman, who later posted that DEI means die. These are people in political offices. I don't know. You know, I do know where this is headed. If at some point in time we as Americans don't decide to stand up and push back against this. I'm from the civil rights era. People stood up and pushed back against it. Where is that at now? 844-967-2789. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
You would have it. Oh, Western Union man, send a telegram to my baby. Send a telegram, whoa, send a telegram to my baby. This is what I want you to say. Want you to tell her that I'm all alone. I tried to call her on the phone. Tell her I'm in misery and think she's avoiding me. And if the telegram don't do, send a box of candy too, and maybe some flowers. Tell her that I missed her for hours and hours. Send a telegram, hurry up, send a telegram, man, to my baby. You hear what I say?
All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Text us at that same number. And yeah, if you're just joining us, I'm talking about the horrible text messages and email messages that have gone out over X, blaming the young mayor of Baltimore for the horrible incident with the bridge being brought down, by this cargo ship, and and very few people. 25 million people agreed with him. There's something really going on in this nation that I've seen before, and people got to push back against it. Hey, good morning to you, Susan. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Good morning. My daughter and I were just talking about this morning, and I'm with you. I was part of the group. I walked across quite a few bridges, and what has taken over this country, and I'm going to put it right out there, is white supremacy. And they are trying to do away with the public schools, because my daughter went to a public school. She's very well educated. She went to Marquette, got her master's degree. And I did that by myself, but I had her go to public schools in Milwaukee because I told her, we have to grow as a nation. We have to work with each other, and we have to learn to talk to each other, to raise each other up as a group, not as a single entity. And what happened was that a lot of brilliant people who happened to be not white came out of Milwaukee and did extraordinary things. And people of different ethnic groups are continuing to rise. And what has happened is that the white supremacy portion of this country is jealous. And that is why they vote for Trump. And I'm sorry that I have to say it that way.
Well, Susan, you and I have been around long enough. We've been down this road before. We know exactly what this is. We know exactly what's happening because we've seen it before. And yet it's rearing its ugly head. It used to be under the cloak of darkness. Now, with sites and those kinds of things, some lunatic or racist can go on a site like X and put something crazy like that, the mayor of Baltimore is the mayor because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if it wasn't for him, being there, this wouldn't have happened. And then you get 25 million people who signify along with him. If that's not an issue that this nation should grapple with, it's bad enough grappling with Donald Trump, but this kind of thing is really, being covered up. And so, we shouldn't be afraid to have the conversation, because what I'm saying is not untrue. It's in the papers for all the world to see. The conversations are being had all over the nation, and yet not enough to impact and affect people who just want hatred to continue in this nation. Susan, thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Cassandra quickly. Hey, good morning to you, Cassandra. How you doing?
Hi, Earl. Thanks for taking my call. When I heard this report trying to link the collapse of the bridge to DEI, it just truly did not make any sense to me. And I think most logical people would realize that there's just no connection between the collapse of that bridge and to race of any kind. It was a stretch to even make that comment. It just does not make any sense to me.
But then why would
Um,
25 million others agree with it, Cassandra? I'm not talking about the demented person who posted it, but 25 million others agree with it.
oh, Earl, we are witnessing at this time a demographic shift in our country. We are quickly moving from an all-white majority society where whites have social dominance to one where there has to be equal power sharing. And the way that those in the dominant group try to maintain their power is by denigrating the skills of the other, which would be people who are different from them. But this is going to work its way out. Maybe not in maybe not in my lifetime or your lifetime, but our country is changing. The face of the American person is not going to of a person in power or our elites in our society. You're not going to necessarily think of them as white. They will be people of color. So
It's inevitable. You're right.
yeah,
It's inevitable.
yeah.
But the
Well,
answer,
thanks. Well,
but Cassandra, but the answer can't be this hatred, right?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. But as I said before, when I heard about it, I was just shaking my head because it just does not make any sense at all.
No,
I,
hatred doesn't have to make any sense, Cassandra. Thank you very much for the call. I really appreciate it. Listen, it's Thursday and Thursday at 9 o'clock. So Omar, the pharmacist, Dr. Omar, the pharmacist, in the pharmacy, up next on the Earl Ingram Show.
Baby, do you hear what I say?
Let me talk to Omar for a second. Hey, Omar, what's going on?
Morning, Earl. How are you?
You got anything in particular you want to talk about?
We can talk about the myth of the vaccination for the immune compromised people. That's the only topic that I think is
Okay.
important now.
Okay, I've got some stuff, so that's good. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without crying. Now I want to understand. I have done all that I could to see the evil and the good without hiding. You must help me if you can. Doctor, my eyes, tell me what is wrong, 'cause I'm wise to leave them open.
All right. Welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Whenever you hear that song, you can rest assured that we are going to be joined by In the Pharmacy by Dr. Omar, the pharmacist of Welltopia. Good morning to you, Dr. Omar. How you doing?
Morning, Earl. I'm doing great. How about you? How are you doing?
Well, it's always great, man, when you're on the air. Our phone lines are open at 844-967-2789. We encourage you, uh, all of you in the listening audience, all across civic media. If you have any questions or comments about your medications and what you need to do in your health and those kinds of things, now is the time. And every Thursday at 9 o'clock, join me and again, Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. And there's not a better person that I've found when it comes to someone who can explain what happens to you, your body, and the medications that you are taking. So Dr. Omar, you and I talked briefly. Again, 844-967-2789 is the number. You and I talked briefly on last week's show about the different vaccines.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that for whatever reason, people have decided we no longer need to take. And they found out, and they're listening to people on the internet
Yeah.
who are
And
saying, don't take those vaccinations, because if you take those vaccinations, they're going to do this to you. Your teeth will grow longer, than your arms, and people are just accepting this foolishness.
the
Tell us,
problem,
well, so what's fact and what's fiction?
the problem, Earl, that it's also coming from health professionals. Like we posted something on vaccines last week, and I saw a pharmacist that I know put a sad, angry face on the post to encourage immune compromised patients to come get the vaccine. By immune compromised, we're talking about cancer patients. We're talking about patients that are treated by chemo, by biologics. People who have congenital immune deficiency, their immune system is not strong enough to live through the debate of to vaccinate or not to vaccinate based on things that are said on the internet. Vaccines are helping. The data are out there. If the CDC come and say that people need to get a new booster of the COVID vaccine for 65 years old plus patients, this is important because a lot of our parents and elderly people cannot withstand long lasting COVID when they are not taking the right vaccine, even they're not taking the right, let's say, supplements to boost the immune system. So there has to be kind of sense and protection to our community.
Dr. Omar, you mentioned COVID. I think 99% of the people think we're beyond that now. And
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Why are you talking about COVID? That was passe. That was a while back. Why do you keep bringing COVID up? That's not
Well,
an issue anymore.
I'll give you an example. I was in the pharmacy and I had 2 days that I was really sick and tired and standing and just I felt like I'm not there. And then I recovered. I recovered fast, I think. And on Monday, I found that I lost my smell. I'm not smelling at all. So I recovered and I lost my smell and I didn't test myself. I found that I didn't test myself and it seems like it was a passing COVID. So the problem, we're not testing now. We are not testing even with the home testing kits that we have in the
Right.
farms and at home. We just forgot about it, kind of. So COVID is out there. People are getting sick. People are going to the hospital to get treatments. But the other challenge also is that there are viruses now that are not identified. That are passing by, and we just have them around. We have GI symptoms. People are throwing up and have nausea and vomiting, and also upper respiratory tract. This is happening now. Is this COVID or is this not COVID? The challenge is like we are waiting for the authorities to tell us that there is something out there when we see it in every house.
So Dr. Omar, when you say one of your colleagues is giving different information than you and than the health and uh, the what's
The CDC and
the
the health
CDC,
authorities, and yeah.
the CDC. So when you hear that, your trained colleague is giving the wrong information? How do you, how does that rest with you?
It doesn't rest with me. Look, I have to be honest with you. I have a close friend who got the vaccine and got serious adverse events from the vaccine. But still, if I have cases 1 in 500,000 or 1 in 1 million that can get side effects, I cannot ignore authenticated data that suggests that COVID-19 vaccine induced immunity protects against reinfection, so protect you from reinfection 5 times better than a previous COVID-19 infection. So you thrive better when you have the vaccine in your body. But at the same time, there is adverse events that we cannot ignore. If I focus the light on an incident here and an incident there and forget that I have to follow the science, I'm going to be hurting the whole community. So I get to ask the question, okay, if you have a problem with this vaccine or that vaccine, show me the science. Show me how, if I unvaccinate the people, this is going to protect the community. This is going to protect us from an infection. This is going to not make us stay home again. It's still it's gonna keep going. It's not going to stop, and that's why I thought I am a holistic pharmacy. I treat with supplements. Sorry, I suggest supplements all day long. I do compounds, so I consider myself to be a holistic pharmacist, but I cannot ignore that we are here to protect and to be safeguard for the community from ideas that can develop to methods of just kind of hurting all of us.
If you are just joining us, it's Thursday. It's 9 o'clock, and that means Omar, the pharmacist, in the pharmacy with Omar, the pharmacist, the proprietor of Welltopia Pharmacy in Mequon, Thingsville. So, Dr. Omar, I got to thinking about medications that are prescribed and side effects, and so I looked up one to dealing with diabetes drugs. And so diabetes is the onset of diabetes, obesity. Explain it to me if I'm wrong or correct me. If you're overweight, you stand a really high likelihood that you're going to contract diabetes. Is it safe to say that?
Well, it is safe to say that diabetes is a causative factor for other problems like cardiovascular problems, heart problems, obesity, increasing in the cholesterol and increasing in the blood pressure. So controlling the A1C, which is kind of the number that you can go every 3 months to the doctor, it's a blood test. It would tell you if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or you're normal. So if your A1C is less than 5.7, you are normal. You're pre-diabetic if the A1C 5.7 to 6.4, and diabetic, the magic number is 6.5 or higher. It's like you get an official diagnosis that you have diabetes, which means the insulin doesn't work as it should in your body. So if you control and focus on this number that you go every 3 months and find it better number, that's what says that your A1C is better. So you can use the insulin in a better way, but you're not gonna do that easily without checking your blood sugar at home once or twice a week.
So
Yeah.
so if you have a glucose meter and the glucose meter doesn't read in the 6.5, 5.6, it says 102 or 90. How do you translate that into what the the A1C?
It's an excellent question. So the A1C is like when you go to the exam every 3 months. The checking with the blood sugar monitor is like studying. So when you check with your blood sugar monitor, there's two ways. Either you do it before you eat or after you eat by 2 hours. So before you eat, you're checking the blood sugar. It would be normal if it's less than 130. I would tell you less than 130. For an empty stomach, you wake up, you check your blood sugar less than 130. But if you eat a meal and you wait 2 hours, insulin is produced in your body. So we want the number to be less than 160. So checking these numbers, and all of the meters now in the market would most of them would record the numbers through the week, so you can take it
Right.
to the doctor, so they can see the previous numbers, and based on those numbers you would know that your blood sugar is good or not good.
So 844-967-2789 is the number. And you guys can always call, not just about what we're talking about, but Dr. Umar is here. Omar is here to talk to you and respond to you about all of the things you are dealing with your medications. Again, every Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the Earl Ingram Show in the pharmacy with Dr. Umar, the pharmacist, in 844-967-2789. Hang on the phone lines. All right.
Is this the price for having learned how not to cry? Everything turn. There is a season turn. And day a time to every purpose under heaven.
All right. Welcome back to In the Pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. He's the proprietor of WellPoint Pharmacy in Mequon, Thiensville. Let's go to the phone lines. Jack from Racine. Hey, Jack, thank you very much for the call. You say what, sir?
Good morning, Earl. I enjoyed the conversation that you're having with Dr. Omar, and I really like what he had to say about vaccines and why people take vaccines, dealing with statistics and probability. I don't think we talk about that enough, and some people apparently don't understand that statistics. But people live based on statistics all the time. It's hard to understand why people who will pick out a vaccine that they're so against, and yet they'll get on an airplane and trust the science of engineering to get up in the air. I don't get it, It doesn't make... So there's something psychological going there. They never learned how to take a shot when they were a kid or something. I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to say is I noticed on the news this morning some of the lawyers who helped Trump in the insurrection attempt are losing their law licenses. In other words, they had malpractice in the law and the rules of being a lawyer, and they're being prosecuted for it, and they're facing consequences. And I think the same thing ought to happen to people with medical licenses of any kind. uh, pharmacy licenses who tell people things that aren't true about their health and really hurt people, individuals, their families, and society with bad information. And I wonder if the doctor, you are aware of people in the medical profession who have had professional consequences from telling lies to people about vaccines, for instance.
Hey, Jack, thank you very much for listening, man. Thank you very much for the call. Dr. Omar?
I think that
Omar.
the boards of medicine and boards of pharmacy are well aware when someone is providing wrong information or kind of saying something that can hurt the public, because we are responsible for protection of the public and providing good information based on our learning and the training. So I can also applaud to the board of pharmacy that they investigate in every single complaint that come their way, like they're very vigor, like they're not playing games. It's just, but this is not what is intended to happen with the information, because we're talking about ideas that can be invading the community in different ways, and the support doesn't need to be like a statement or some kind of I put it in a newsletter, but it can be just in silence, just listening and not defending good medicine. So the thing is, like, the people who have the information that's based on data and science should speak up and not think that people know. No, we do not know. We listen to people that who we trust, and gaining the trust of the public based on that is very important. Preaching the knowledge that we think and believe is correct is very important, because we want to empower the community based on just awareness and not based on fining and taking the license and doing that, because this just hasn't worked before and it will never work. We are a free country and there is freedom of speech, and we want to encourage people to tell us their true thoughts. Are otherwise they're not going to tell you what they're thinking of. People are going to be mute and silence, and they're not going to discuss with you that they think that this is bad medication or bad vaccine. They're just going to do it, and it's going to happen behind our back. So I think we need to preach it more and just kind of provide data and market the right science and the good science.
Very well said, Dr. Omar. Let's go to Mary from Wauwatosa. Good morning to you, Mary. How are you? And thank you very much for listening and calling as always.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. I had the good fortune on last weekend to go into Welltopia and to find a green super powder. Dr. Omar was as informative with my questions as he is on the program. My question today relates to a discussion we had yesterday about memory concerns, dementia, Alzheimer's. And I'd like to ask Dr. Omar if he has an opinion about MCT3 oil, which I think is found in coconut oil, and if it's helpful, in supporting the brain and the nervous system, or any other nutritional or supplement supports that we could be taking. I'll listen off the air. Thank you.
And Mary, thank you as always.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for coming to the pharmacy. MCT oil, it's coming from the coconut oil. It has to be in a very pure version. There were some studies about how it helps to support the brain health. We have to think of the brain as, like, most of it is fat. More than 65 or 70% of the brain is fat. So having the right amount, concentration of the fats for the brain, the omega-3 to omega-6 is always supportive and excellent. So MCT oil can help, but focusing on getting omega-3 oil on a daily basis is going to be more important, and more data with it. So omega-3, we focus on that. And there are things also that help support the memory. L-theanine can help support with less anxiety, more management of the stress. And there is a compound that we make called synapsin. It has to be compounded from certain pharmacies. Synapsin, it's the best thing that we have to support and boost memory for seniors and also for patients post-concussion. I know that most people didn't hear about synapsin. It's a compound. it's something that it's taken intranasally. It's think of it as ginseng that goes directly to the brain. This is one of the compound we have been using for the last 10 years among, I think, 4,000 pharmacies in the United States. But there are a lot of supplements that can help. Ginkgo can help support memory. The problem with ginkgo is that you cannot take a high dose when you're taking also a blood thinner. So I would highly recommend that when you see memory boosting supplement popping up in front of you in ads, check with the pharmacist and with your doctor to see if there is drug interaction that can happen from this to take with the other medications that you can be taking.
You know what, Dr. Omar, what I want to do as we move further into the show is I want you to talk about a man that you and I both knew, a pharmacist who was a holistic pharmacist. You know, and this man was an unbelievable man who probably practiced for what, 60 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
how many years did Dr. Carter practice?
I think forever. Dr.
Yeah,
Carter was like, it was
and, and
energy,
so
energy.
yeah, and so I remember this gentleman, and he was way ahead of his time, and he was a holistic pharmacist before most others even thought
Thought
about
about
it,
it. Yeah.
and he prescribed those meds for our community from the time I was a young boy, 16, 17 years old. And
Yeah.
you had the pleasure of learning from him in his latter years. I think it's important that we have kind of a little dialogue. Do you mind
Yeah, sure.
about
Oh my God.
about
This is just
who he was and how much you learned from him? All
unbelievable.
right.
For sure.
So
Dr. Carter was
so
incredible.
in the pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. 844-967-2789. Hang on the phone lines. We'll come to you. News, weather, and sports. Tune into the Earl Ingram Show Friday morning. I'll be joined by my good friend and regular co-host, Sandy Williams.
When are you gonna come down? When are you going to land? I should have stayed on the phone. Should have listened to my mind. You know you can't hold me forever. I didn't sign up for you. I'm not a present for your friends to open. This boy's too young to be singing the blues. So goodbye, yellow brick road, where the dogs of society house.
All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. And if you are just joining us for the first time, every Thursday at 9 a.m., we are in the pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist of Welltopia. And so, you can join us at any time during our conversation. Any questions you have about your medications and all of those things, Dr. Omar is here to certainly give you some pertinent information. He's not here to prescribe things for you, but he's here to give you some pertinent information. So Dr. Omar, before we, took a little short hiatus, I wanted to make sure that we talk to the audience. And before we do that, let's go to Bill, man. Calvin, let's bring Bill in quickly. Hey, Bill, how you doing? Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
I can't wait to ask the doctor this. I've been a fan of raw honey for over 10 years, and I take about a good teaspoon of full every day. My health has reflected that. What do you think, Dr. Omar?
I think that raw honey has potential health benefits. I love it. We have it in the pharmacy. It's rich in antioxidants. It helps as antibacterial and antifungal. Helps for the digestive health and the flora of the gut. Helps with sore throat relief. And I use it also when I make like anise tea with raw honey to help with soothing the sore throat as part of what I do after cold and flu symptoms. Potential immune system support, uh, allergy relief, but it's very important to get the raw honey from a local farmer because the bees would have what we say the ability like the immune system supporting abilities of the area where you live. It's better to get the raw honey from where you live rather than buying raw honey from another state or another country. nutritious content. I love that you do this every day. Just you have to be careful with the sugar content though, so you can use it, but just be aware of the amount of sugar that's inside it because it still has a high calorie. So yeah, I would say like a tablespoon or something a day is fine, but for diabetic patients, I would be aware that it can raise blood sugar.
Bill, thank you very much for the call. So before the call with Bill, I was talking with Dr. Omar about this wondrous man who's no longer with us, Dr. Carter. Let's
Yeah,
talk a little
Dr.
bit about
Carter.
Dr. Carter, just a
Yeah.
spectacular human being.
So I worked with Dr. Carter in for several months, and we were working in a store that was this like his I think his last store that he was dispensing herbal medicine. And I remember that I used to always have my notepad with him because his memory and his ability to just answer questions related to different ailments and just give suggestions, recommendations, tuck, 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 like a shotgun. He was wealth of knowledge. He had compounding prescription formulas that are very old, very effective. People come to him and ask him for them, and I would just look at the ingredients that he uses, and it was marvelous that these are 50 years old and 60 years old formulas that he still uses to treat things that the commercial available product do not treat, like eczema on the head, some formulas of essential oils to help with hair growth. And then I would see patients coming, taking it for a few months, and I would ask them like, "What's your feedback?" And the patients say, "This is the only thing that works for me." And he would be able to offer this with comparable prices. I created a program that Dr. Carter would sit with pharmacists and interns, and they would throw questions to him about what can we use to help with this ailment, with shingles, and he would just give complementary medicine ideas, specific products with doses that I think I still have those files, but Dr. Carter was an inspiring human being because he never said no to anybody. And while he was in his even final days, you ask him a question and his eyes would just glow with wonder and excitement. And he would tell you what you need to do. Yeah, Dr. Carter is like, he built something different in Milwaukee that will stay long after he passes.
You know, he was still practicing into his 80s.
He was.
And I remember this wondrous man. I worked in a pharmacy from the age of 14 to 18.
Wow.
And so it was a Rexall pharmacy for those who, been around a while. The Rexall pharmacies left a long time ago, long before you were born, Dr. Omar. I don't know if
Yeah,
you ever
told
heard
me
of
that. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of the Rexall pharmacies, but they were a chain of pharmacies.
Yeah.
And they were privately owned by different pharmacists. And so I remember it was his pharmacy was about 6 blocks from where I was employed. And whenever we were out of meds, I would go down. I worked for a couple Germans, Elmer and Maida Detman, a husband and wife pharmaceutical team that owned this Rexall drugstore and that employed me from 14 to 18. And I would go down and take meds to him, and he would come, and I would go and pick meds up from him and bring them to us. And they just had a great partnership, and I got to know him really well as a young boy.
Yeah.
And the man was a special, special person. And so if you think about it, and it was amazing to me that I had gone long into my 60s, and I would go to the drugstore and it was still the way it was from the time I was a young boy. He still had all the same kinds of things, but he had all of these people who would come in without a prescription from the doctor, uh, Dr. Omar, and tell him what was going on with them. And he would take the time out with each one of them. And as you stated, create the compounds and all those other things from memory, I guess, And so I have to ask you, do you think he learned those things um, back when he trained as a pharmacist, or do you think, because we're talking, had to
I
be the
talked to Dr.
50s?
Carter. I talked to Dr. Carter about this specifically, and I asked him, "How did you get your training on the natural medicine?" And he got his training. He was one of the he was the only colored student in, I think, Alabama University
Right,
pharmacy school, and he's telling me that he trained with excellent pharmacists that trained him on natural medicine. That's where he started, and they inspired to him that you can just continue this and grow this. And he, when he created his store in Milwaukee, he was telling me that I had like 4 or 5 pharmacies around me, and they all closed within years. And he
right.
lasted. He stayed because it was the cornerstone. People would come to him that they just before going to the doctor, they would go to Dr. Carter and ask him for natural remedies. And they get the natural remedies because he's a pharmacist. He can see that this how this can work with the medicine that they take. Patients get better, and they don't have to go to the doctor to like or schedule an appointment. So he was like, they people would come to him for advice. And the nice thing also, he's like, he picks up the phone. Earl, try to call the pharmacy in any chain stores and
I
try to
know.
speak to a pharmacist. No, and
Yeah,
Dr. Carter picked up the phone, man. He would pick up the phone, he would answer the call, finish it, and he doesn't ask you for anything in return. So he had something different and unique, and there is those pharmacists are out there, but the problem is the workload that we have on our pocket and on our desk to finish can be huge. So we don't have time to talk to patients. But the nice thing about Dr. Carter, he continued doing what he was doing. He was unique. He had excellent training, and he kept learning. And he just knew so many companies that provide high quality natural remedies. And I learned from those companies, and I brought some to my store because we discussed actually with Dr. Carter. I discussed with him opening my store, and I told him, "What do you think?" And his eyes glow, and he told me, "If I'm with you in this, it would be very successful." So it was actually he inspired me also with some ideas with my
you
store.
know, he was an icon
Yeah,
in my community, and the fact that as time went on, and the fact that his store is still operable, the fact that Hyatt came in and made sure that the legacy of Dr. Carter's store over on 24th and Hour will live on. I think is was a great thing. How did he respond to that? I'm sure he was.
he was very appreciative that Hyatt Pharmacy has offered him this opportunity, and he was very happy that he can practice freely and provide recommendations for natural medicine in his store in his last few years. He was very happy that he can just come back, and he had some health issues, and then he would just come back to the store and do what he's used to do. He would go on the radio shows every week, and it just like, I think if he practiced for 50 or 60 years, the last day of his practice is similar to the first day of his practice. He still is Dr. Carter that has the wealth of knowledge. His brain was sharp, Earl. He was
I
just
know.
here. He
Yeah.
always was here. He took care of himself. He's
You
taking
know.
very good supplements. Yeah.
Dr. Omar. Uh, Having dialogue with the pharmacists as we are having with you um, every Thursday here at 9 o'clock is a loss. It's a lost kind of thing. It doesn't exist um, much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Even the pharmacy where I worked as a young boy, Elmer and Mater Detman both would take the time out, and they were, you know, privately owned, and maybe that's the key, right?
Privately owned. Yeah.
Maybe that's the difference. I don't know how many privately owned pharmacies there are anymore, but I'm sure you guys are, without question, the exception.
Yeah.
Privately owned pharmacies today are kind of an impossible thing to do, right?
It's not easy. There are some independent pharmacies out there. We try to help and empower each other. And kind of, if I don't have a medication, I would do similar that you did with Dr. Carter's pharmacy. You would go and ask them for help if you have bottle of this medication, or Monjaro that's out of stock and I need a box for
Right.
one of my patients. So we work with some pharmacies around us, but it's very hard now because insurance companies and prescription benefit manager companies, they're putting so much pressure on the small stores to get them out of business. And we try to help patients. Like, to give you an example, yesterday something happened. I was trying to help a patient get a medication for a commercial available product, and I just spent like an hour trying to help her and make it go through the insurance and call the other pharmacy. And at the end of the day, I found that I lose $120 to dispense the medication. So like, I dispensed the medication with a profit loss to the patient. And I was just asking myself, why do the insurance companies do this to me? And how is this happening with every store in the United States? So it's a big conversation that makes pharmacists so stressed out and not wanting to talk to patients. I can relate to that, but it's not an excuse. We should always provide time for excellent patient care.
All right, 844-967-2789. In the pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. You can join us, 844-967-2789. Any questions or comments, we'll certainly take.
That's excellent music.
Smiling faces sometimes pretend to be your friend. Smiling faces show no traces of the evil that lurks within. Smiling faces sometimes they don't tell the truth. Smiling faces tell lies, and I got proof. Oh, Lord.
All right, welcome back to what I can't believe is the last few minutes in the pharmacy with Dr. Omar, the pharmacist. Let's go to the phone lines and Gary from Sussex. Good morning to you, Gary. Thank you very much for the call.
I got two questions for the doctor. One is that I heard this week that men that take Viagra, it actually helps Alzheimer's. And because I'm 72, and I just feel a little smarter in the last few years, you know. And
come on, man.
all right.
Hey, come on, man. But go ahead.
But that is a legitimate question. I'm sure he heard about it. And then the other question is gargling with apple cider vinegar. My wife got this recipe from her grandmother that if you start feeling cold, getting a cold or getting a sore throat, gargling with apple cider vinegar and water helps. Is that true?
It's a great question, Gary. Thank you. Dr. Omar?
All right. So the first question about the Viagra and the Alzheimer's. So I want to tell you that sildenafil, the active ingredient, has been actually studied to help with Alzheimer. So reducing risk of Alzheimer. 2021 study was done that showed that sildenafil had 69% lower risk of developing Alzheimer disease compared to the non-users. It analyzed data over 7 million people and accounted for various factors like sex, race, and age. So it can help. Also, that's how we are trying to repurpose existing drugs that are out there. So if you found that you were using it and it was helping, to reduce the risk of Alzheimer disease as a treatment, I think there is more studies that are happening to see how it can be repurposed to treat Alzheimer disease. But if someone have Alzheimer in the later stage, it's going to be hard for it to help. But to reduce the risk of it happening, that's more of as like a protective measure. And the potential mechanism is that it works by increasing blood flow, which will help to improve the brain function. Also helps as neuroprotective properties, can reduce accumulation of tau protein, which has like a role with Alzheimer. So let's say it's like a way to say that it's a medicine. Yes, it's synthetic, but not every medicine is bad. So
But
yeah, there's legs to that.
what about the apple cider vinegar?
Apple cider vinegar is antioxidants and vitamins, supports the immune system. So yeah, it potentially would help fight off the cold and flu viruses. It's just some people cannot take apple cider vinegar because it can be like the acidity is high. So
Right.
make sure that you take it after you eat. Apple cider vinegar has antibacterial properties. It promotes hydration, and drinking apple cider vinegar with water increases the fluid intake, which is important to stay hydrated while being sick and cold and flu. So yeah, there is basis to that as well. So it's an excellent recommendation.
All right, let's go to Jackie from Glendale. Good morning to you, Jackie. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the call. You say what?
I'm going to start taking Viagra, I think. I have a question for Dr. Orr. I'm wondering, seriously.
Hey, leave the humor up to me and Dr. Omar. But anyway, go ahead.
I'm wondering if you can take raw honey instead of, I have to get, and I'm terrified of this, 2 different antibiotics by IV for Bartonella, and I react to everything. I mean, there's times I just don't wake up for 3 or 4 hours, and then I have to crawl. So I'm terrified of taking these 2 antibiotics by IV because I know they hit you harder than by mouth, and I can't take it by mouth because my stomach got wrecked from them giving me lidocaine at the hospital when I'm allergic to it. And then now I have gastric paresthesis, so I have to do it by IV.
So the challenge with the Bartonella infection is that there are specific antibiotics prescribed that can help. Okay, and if you have problems taking it orally and you have to take it IV, you have to take it IV. It's going to bypass the gut, so it's going to be less problematic when it comes to the microbiome. I would tell you Rouhani is not going to be a substitute. We want to make sure that we get rid of the infection that you have. And if it was Bartonella, no, this is serious and we have to make sure that we take care of it. After you finish the IV treatment, we can do kind of plan for 6 months to help you get off the side effects from taking those rough antibiotics. And it can be a mix of good probiotics, good mix of greens, and also to work on the gut permeability for you to make sure that you recover completely. But I would highly recommend that you do not substitute the antibiotic prescribed with Rouhani. Rouhani is great, I love it, but it has its place in its complementary medicine. But for this kind of infection, we want to make sure we take care of it, we eradicate it, and then we get you back on your feet with good supplements plan and good nutrition.
Hey, Jackie, wish you well, and thank you very much for the call. Really appreciate it. You know, Dr. Omar, I'm enjoying this hour flies by, right?
Flies by.
Yeah, it flies by. And I
Very
think more and
entertaining.
more people in the listening audience are starting to grow accustomed to our dialogue and our conversation. And more than anything else, they're getting some useful information that, you know, they wouldn't get anywhere else. So it's wonderful that you are on the air. I mean, I really love having you here, and I'm sure the audience loves it as well. That's
Thank you.
Omar the pharmacist, and you can find him at Welltopia Pharmacy in Mequon and Thiensville. What's the address?
136 North Main Street in Thiensville.
Yeah. All right, and we'll see you again next Thursday, my friend.
See you again. Thank you, Earl.
All right, thank you. Thank everybody who made the show go always. Couldn't do it without you, Calvin. Could not do it without you. You know, up next, Jane Madnair on air, and Greg Bach. You know, get out. The sun is out, and enjoy it. See you guys on tomorrow.
Thank you.
Smiling faces, sometimes they don't tell the truth.